I'm Dr. Dhanabalan, and I truly cannot tell you how happy and I'm proud to be here. James, I have known him since he was probably in 6th grade. My son and him were in elementary school and graduated from Weston High School. So I'm very proud to be here and to see that you guys are involved in such a young group, and truly honored that Dr. Greenspoon was here. For people that don't know, this is truly a person that has been involved in showing how people can make change. Here's somebody that went into it that was trying to prove how bad this medicine was and dedicated his time to showing that, and in the end result ended up being now an advocate. I know part of this meeting has been that how people have the trials and tribulations, but I truly believe we're at a point where change is going to happen. And each one of us here is involved in it. Either you could be listening to it or actively involved, or also educating yourself. I am known usually as Dr. Uma. I'm a family physician, occupational medicine physician, and cannabis medicine physician. I'm honored to be here, and my dad is here, and my son is here with his girlfriend Adrian. So these are my family members that are here. I'm accompanied by friends, colleagues, patients, and students. I would have never imagined 5 years ago that I would be here talking about this medicine and being so actively involved, to be proud to say this and not hiding. And this is one of the biggest changes that we've seen, that this knowledge has to come out. The truth has to be told. And is it madness or medicine? And at the end of this, I want you to decide. So what I would like you to be able to understand is to know, what is cannabis? What are its uses, past to the present? What are the various types? And the beautiful word, the endocannabinoid system. So it's a plant. It belongs to the family of cannabis. There's 2 species that we talk about primarily, Cannabis sativa and indica. There's also another one, Ruralis. It's known by different names: marijuana, pot, weed, Mary Jane, ganja, reefer, hash. It also has over 420 different chemicals, 80 different cannabinoids, and more to be discovered. It has traveled from China, India, to Africa, to Europe. Cannabis, in the old Babylonian word, cannabis, was known as stalk, cane, this meaning 2 sexes. And in the Chinese word, ma, also means the same thing, a plant from which we make fiber, which has 2 sexes. So it's known as a medicine, recreationally, and it also has many, many modern uses. It's been used for every part of this plant: the stalk, the seeds, the fuel, the oils, industrial products, clothing, to fuels, to feeding people. My assistant Maggie says this plant is going to change the world and take care of everything. And I agree with her. We also understand the agricultural benefits from growing this plant compared to cotton, how this uses less water, less pesticide, it replenishes the earth. This goes back to Emperor Shennan, who is known about this medicine in the Chinese as used for over 5,000 years. Just the other day, I picked up a little book called Tea Time. And my mother used to read this book. And now my son is reading this book, and I open the thing, and whose picture is in it but this gentleman? And he was first known to making the chamomile tea. Chamomile tea was known for soothifying people, helping them relax. So teas and these phytocannabinoids we're going to talk about later. People think of people that use cannabis as forgetful. And if you see here, it was used. Forgetfulness, gout, malaria. And these are all illnesses and things that we still deal with today. When we talk about history, we know that there's written history going back before Christ's time. We know that it's been written Chinese pharmacopoeia. They even have things that are known as bouillon. It's also for different purposes. It relates back in prior to history. It's been used as a holy anointment. Even cannabis, as it was known, was combined with different oils and flavors, and it was rubbed all throughout the body, again for healing. And again, back then, the word was again related to the word cannabis. That's where it goes back to. The Egyptians had used this medicine for glaucoma, inflammation, enemas. It was even found in the mummy of Ramzan. Bong. I have yet to try this in India. I actually got to experience this at one of our local events. But this is in our culture in India. It was still used back then and still used today for festive occasions and has medicinal purposes. And it's an anesthetic, anti-phlegm for coughs. The Indians believed it quickened the mind, not slowed you down, quickened the mind, prolonged life, improved your judgment, lowers fevers, sleep, dysentery. It was one of the first medicines used in the Ayurvedic medicine. They even talked about it as a cure for leprosy. I'm talking about 600 BC. You talk about it doesn't have science, the history, you decide. The bong shops in India, government authorized. It even goes back to the Greek physician, where the first book titled De Martes Medica. The plant which was used in making rope was also produced a juice that treated earaches and suppressed sexual longings. What extremes of what they can use it for. It spread to the Western Hemisphere. The Spaniards originally took it from Chile and used it as a fiber. In North America, it's known as hemp. It's used as rope, clothing, paper. In the 60s, Queen Elizabeth orders people to grow it. It's known as hemp and cannabis back then. Ordered. So here's a product that's being told to be grown. In 64, King Philip of Spain has people grow it in Argentina. Oregon, it's spreading to now. In the Chinese text, they talk about this to treat vomiting, parasite infection, bleeding, even to stimulate appetite and dysentery. Things we're still talking about. Here it is now in 1600s. It's now come to the United States, Jamestown, where people are told to order this, grow it. The seeds are being used, mandated. It's used for money. It can be bartered and pay taxes. People don't realize the first draft of the independence, our declaration, was written on hemp paper. The second declaration, and then the final was written on annual parchment. So, medical marijuana, before its time, there was a guy by the name of Dr. O'Shaughnessy. He had gone to India and learned about this medicine. He went to Europe, talked about it. It was used in this country and was available to people over the counter. It was in our pharmacopoeias. We all know the Webster's Dictionary. For clinicians, we had the pharmacopoeia. It was a book that we referred to look to see what medicines to use for treatment. It was in the pharmacopoeia till 1942. Most of my colleagues, physicians, do not know this. This is a fact. So Park Davis, Squibb, all these companies made these products. My dad actually worked for Park Davis in the 1960s. They were involved in making chloroquine, which was used for treatment for malaria. These were the kind of bottles, cannabis indica, cough mixtures. You could see they were available, real medicines. In the 1800s, I love this, Dr. Sir Reynolds, who prescribed this medicine for Queen Victoria, wrote in the first medical magazine, He said, when pure and administered carefully, cannabis, one of the most valuable medicines we possess. 1890, here we are in 2015, and we still are learning. Welcome, guys. The Spanish War erupts, and this is when you realize how things can be changed, how politics and people who have money can make changes. In the 1800s, the Spanish now are in control. And I want to remind you of the players that are around now. There's the DuPonts and the Hearst family. Everybody's got their agenda. Make cannabis your agenda today. What they did is the DuPonts wanted to produce their oils and manufacture. Hearst were on their agenda to get their paper mills out. And they had the power of the newspaper at that time. Well, the Spanish kind of pissed them off. This is where the war begins. They took their land. They took the Hearst over 800,000 acres of timberland that they took. This actually starts the war against the Mexicans. Because they even said that the Mexicans are lazy, pot-smoking laybouts. And they lump these people. Now imagine how they're starting to paint the picture. Spaniards, Mexicans, blacks. So they're painting pictures and they're also describing what these people look like. In 1893 to 84, I told you, O'Shaughnessy had gone to India. They're using this medicine there. Within this year, they have a hemp commission that talks and collects information and puts it together and says, this is what we find. Because they were concerned that they were using this medicine in India. What could be the concern? And what do they find out? It's an analgesic. It restores energy. It's an anti-diuretic. It helps people induce labor. It is for treating cholera, gonorrhea, diabetes, open sores, alleviates hunger, concentration, attention. You know this fact about that. Get it to 1906. We're now in the United States where Congress now starts to pass a law where food, and they start to have labeling, and cannabis requiring it because it's now available over the counter. So you got to understand what's happening. Now we're in 1914. We've got World War I that's occurred. We've got prohibition of alcohol. We've got the stock market crash, the depression. Meanwhile, there's music going on. The blacks are making music. Jazz is around. So again, propaganda is being created with the blacks, the Mexicans, and how this stuff is changing people. Okay? In 1930, they had the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. And who do they appoint? If there's one person that can evoke my blood pressure, is this man's name, Henry Anslinger. He was appointed. You know, I said to somebody in class the other day to say, can we create a war crime against him? And they said that the government actually didn't appoint him, so we can't go after anybody. Too bad. So here he is appointed, and he is now able to create the myths. He says his case rested on two false assertions: that the drug caused insanity and it pushed people toward horrendous acts of criminality. So there's a campaign now. So now they're setting this picture. This is where this whole concept of gateway drug comes about in 1930. They portray it as addicting, that leads users to other narcotic drugs. Beware, young and old people of all walks of life. This joint may be handed you by a friendly stranger. It contains the killer drug, marijuana, a powerful narcotic which lurks murder, insanity, death. Warning, the peddlers are shrewd. They may put some of this stuff in your tea or in your cigarette. This is stuff that's publicized. Look at the words, what they evoke in people, even to this day. 1936, they make a movie about it. Reefer madness. Yesterday I was with somebody, he said, and my 9-year-old daughter watched this movie. And his response by the 9-year-old was, do intelligent people really believe this? I was like, wow. And here we are with evidence-based medicine and colleges and universities, and this is what they believed back then. Now, they've changed the word. It's no longer cannabis anymore. It's marijuana. They changed the letters. They portrayed it with marijuana, Mexican, Spanish, black. A lot of people didn't even know what they were signing when this Tax Act was passed. 1916, we summarize this, so people are told to grow it. We've got 1850s where it's available as a medicine. The Mexicans are coming on board. All Mexicans are crazy, and this stuff, marijuana, is what makes them crazy. This guy Anslinger writes, reefer makes darkies think they're as good as white man. Whoa! Marijuana is the most violent drug in the history of mankind. I want you guys all to rewrite that sentence. Marijuana is the safest medicine and drug of mankind. This medicine is put in prohibition now. So after prohibition is passed, mayor from New York, Warrior said, let's really look at this. 1938, they request people to look at this information. And now marijuana problem in the city of New York. And it's known as the LaGuardia Report. Concludes many claims about dangers of marijuana are exaggerated and untrue. Anslinger goes on to wipes out this history. They bring copies of this and make sure it all out. We come to 1942. It's taken out of the PSPs. We've erased history now. Totally removed it. They start this in this, and publicity starts occurring. And that's affecting New York. And this is when again, we realize information is incorrect. In the 50s, we get this generation attitude. In the 60s, we start talking about the hippies. The rebellion starts. In 68, there's places growing marijuana for studies. Come to 1970, when things change. The Controlled Substance Act is put into place, and they put cannabis along with other medicines, and they apply Schedule. To this day, cannabis is in Schedule 1, along with heroin, LSD, and ecstasy. This is where cannabis is today, meaning that the drug has no medical use, no research done for it, and the potential for abuse. And Dr. Lester Redstone told you about how they came up with this addiction numbers. Dr. Ralph Mashulin, who is the grandfather of cannabis, meanwhile, in 1964 is working in Israel and identifies THC as the psychoactive component in Israel. It wasn't until 1988 that the first CB1 receptors were identified, and they were in the brain. CB2 receptors in the immune system. It wasn't until 1992 that we find out that our own body makes endocannabinoids. The first one named anandamide. And I love this story. He says that he could not find a word in the Hebrew language to describe eternal joy and bliss. So he went to the Sanskrit language, and that's how the word anandamide was created. We now realize that these receptors are in all parts of the brain. And what was really fascinating is that the part of the brain that controls your breathing and your heart rate, guess what? No receptors. That's why nobody dies from cannabis. It does not stop your breathing or your heart rate. We know that in 1975, we had a program that when it was called the Investigational New Drug. To this day, there's 4 people alive, 2 of them that are still getting the medicine from the government. And Robert Randall was the first guy that got this medicine. And he got it because of glaucoma. He was arrested. He then was supplied with this medicine. It then became into program where a lot of patients were applying for it, especially with the advent of HIV. People were using it for nausea, loss of appetite. They shut the program down in 1992 when the Bush administration was in effect. And it's never been reopened since then. I have met Ellie Musaka. She's a glaucoma patient. This is how her medicine comes. And you can see the label, and it comes from the Research Triangle. So that's where they grow the dirt weed, as the patients call it. But she still receives her medicine. So when we talk about cannabinoids, we talk about three different types of cannabinoids. We talk about endocannabinoids, phytocannabinoids, and synthetic cannabinoids. Okay? So when we talk about endo, we're going to go into those details. So we talk about the endo, the phyto, and the synthetic. And what these all do is work with receptors. So imagine three people had keys that can open the same lock, right? The lock is the lock, but the keys are different keys that can open the lock. So that's how they all work together on these receptors. What was also interesting was that what our own body made and what phytocannabinoids made, they mimicked it. So the mimicking is what makes them be recognized by that receptor and work. So these are the structures. So when we talk about these receptors, there are a G protein receptor. There's 7 membranes. There's a lot of details we could go into, but they're lipophilic, meaning they like fatty things versus hydrophilic, water. This is the other thing that I want to mention is that the plant cannabinoids and what our body makes is what's similar, are lipophilic, versus the synthetic ones are not. And that is why Marinol could be deadly versus the plant is not. So 2 subtypes of receptors that we talk about, CB1, and this is only by numbering. The first one was found, so they called it CB1. Second one was found, CB2. Primarily, CB1s are primarily in the brain. CB2s are primarily in the immune system. And there's no other ones that they're saying non-CB1 and 2. So we know that the CB1 receptors not only in the brain, but they're in our fat cells, they're in our muscle, in our liver, and in our GI system. That's why they work for so many different ailments. And the CB2 receptors are primarily in the immune system. We know that this system, if it doesn't work properly, if there's a deficiency, that leads to illnesses. And it can occur depending on where the deficiency is, has different effects. If it's in the brain, it can blockade, it decreases your appetite, helps you lose weight. All of the central obesity that we worry about in metabolic syndrome can be helped. This is why it helps with people losing weight and diabetes. Helps with cholesterol production, helps with people that have GI distress. So this kind of is a summary. So when we think about the different cannabinoids, THC is the most psychoactive cannabinoid, CBD is the non-psychoactive cannabinoid, and CBNs have about 1/10 of the psychoactive property. As you can see, these receptors are distributed throughout the body and with more predominance in one area versus another. We know that the system has existed for over 600 million years. It's evolved from the sea squirt to what we have in man today. Dr. DiMarzio summarizes so beautifully. He said the endocannabinoid system was meant for us to relax, eat, sleep, forget, and protect. Balance. Concept of balance. In 2003, the US government obtained a patent, and they used the patent. It's known that the cannabidiols as antioxidants and neuroprotectant. This information makes me really heartache that it's criminal what the US government is doing. They have a patent, which means that they have research, and they own it. And this will, I think, expire, I don't know how long patents.
20 years.
How many?
20 years.
So 2023. So this is why this medicine works for so many ailments, from brain tumors to MRSA, skin infections, HIV, or GI disorders, sleep apnea, multiple sclerosis, ALS, and the list goes on, fibromyalgia, hepatitis. We know that it works as a bronchodilator. That's why it works for asthmatics. And I'll go into a little bit more detail as why it does, because a lot of people think, why would you smoke this when I can't breathe? But it actually works in dilating the bronchioles. As an antiemetic, this is why it works for nausea and for patients that are on cancer medications, the side effects from the cancer patients' medications that they're taking. Stimulates appetite, helps with pain. It's not that the pain disappears, it doesn't become your focus. It helps in the spasticity, even helps with decreasing intraocular pressure. Even with blood pressure, we're seeing how it works. There's this concept now about endocannabinoid deficiency. If people have deficiencies, we say, if you're vitamin D deficiency, give you vitamin B. If you're vitamin B deficiency, give you those vitamins. There's a concept now that we don't produce enough of our own cannabinoids, our endocannabinoids. This has been linked to migraines, fibromyalgia, IBS, autoimmune diseases. People lacking this are now understanding why supplementation through cannabinoids can help them cure and maybe even prevent. So we know the effects on the eyes, reddening, and the mouth can cause dryness, in the skin, heat and cold, cause your heart to increase your rate, and relaxation of the muscles. We know that the medicine can come in either raw form, you could heat it, or with time, what happens to it. The two big strains we talk about is indica and sativa. I'm kind of simple-minded, so I like to remember things simply. I think of sativas as sunshine, daytime, so it's more stimulatory, more of the head high, uplifting. Indica is insomnia, so nighttime. But my students make it easier for me. They say, indica, Dr. Uma, you're in the couch. In the couch, indica. So coming down, body high, it's indica, versus the head high is the sativas. Okay. So we know that there's so many different cannabinoids. There's overlap in how the cannabinoids can be used. And this is one of the things that's very important. Why we don't want to alienate one cannabinoid from the other. We want the whole plant, and why each of them is important. So different consumptions in inhalation, ingestion, topical, and other forms. Inhalation, people can roll it, they can smoke it, they can vaporize it. They have all different toys, and there are more things coming out. And again, things like the decarboxylator as well. We can ingest it. My 96-year-old lady, the smart lady, who was on a blood pressure medicine, on insomnia medicine and anxiety, her great-great-granddaughter decides to bring her flower cannabis. And she decides to boil it with milk. Smart lady, knowing it's lipophilic. She boils this milk with this cannabis. She drinks it down. Daytime. She does a half a cookie at night, half a cookie with her dinner. She's off her meds. She's not falling down. She's improved her quality of life. She's out gardening. And she's functioning. So this medicine is about hope and quality of life. Comes in all different kind of ways. Candies, cookies, tinctures. Remember, it's still a medicine no matter what it looks like. So treat it as that. You can use topicals. And this is really fascinating stuff, because you don't get the psychoactive component. There'll always be somebody that will tell you they do, but it should be less likely unless it's absorbed through the skin through an open wound. But topicals work very well for our patients, for arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, people that have had different types of even phantom pains where their limbs have been removed and they still feel the pain, and skin infections, psoriasis, eczema, a whole array of products this stuff works very well for. Even prevention of skin cancer or treatment of skin cancer works well for. Suppositories, people don't like to talk about this, but I do, because I think it's a very easy delivery system. And when you've got somebody that can't eat, that can't swallow, and is seizing, this is a very easy way to deliver this medicine. And it works very rapidly. So there's synthetic medications. A lot of people have heard about Marinol, Sesamet. These are all meds that are out there. Marinol was one of the first created. It was mainly created for patients that were having nausea and vomiting from the chemotherapy drugs, but also HIV patients that were having problems because of the appetite and neuropathic pain. And it's been placed in Schedule 3, okay, where cannabis is in Schedule 1. We've got Sesamet, which is another one, and it's in Schedule 2. Same purpose as Marinol. This drug just blew my mind. This is where fat can be turned inside out. Remember I told you about the CB1 receptors and how they worked in the adipose tissue, in the liver, the brain, the muscles? Well, the drug company decides, great, information. Let's help people lose weight. So they create a CB1 antagonist. People lost weight. They got a little nauseous initially, little muscle aches. Ultimately, they were 6 feet under. They committed suicide because why? They cut off all the CB1 receptors, the ones that help you think, the ones that keep you motivated. Shot. Thank God this medicine never made it to the United States. This is another drug that's actually very exciting. It's a combination of being used for epileptic patients, but they're finding out Dravet syndrome, which is uncontrollable seizures, and what they're finding out, they're even using it for autism. So exciting stuff is coming out. The concerns I have with pharmaceuticals is that if they could get their hands on it, we would probably have 80 different pills for the 80 different cannabinoids that are out there, if not more. But they will kill you because it's just one part. Here we are. Massachusetts passes the law. We're still working on opening dispensaries, and some of my colleagues are here that are going to make sure it happens in a proper way and safely for all our patients. Annual deaths. If you don't take away any information, you're going to remember one thing. How many deaths from cannabis, folks? 0. Can I hear that a little louder? 0. One more time. 0. Thank you. 0 deaths. Okay? Again, more vehicle accident kills more people. Drug-induced deaths. We've got a concern and a problem. We've got opioid overdose. We've got over 45,000 people dying, out of which 80% of those people did not want to die. Unintentional deaths. Guess what? You know, when you see those advertisements, they say, ask your doctor, and behind it says, may cause death. Guess what cannabis is going to say? Will not cause death. No deaths. Okay, so here, we've got qualifying patients that can be able to get recommendations. And this is another word I want you to understand. Doctors, healthcare providers do not write a prescription for items in Schedule 1. Cannabis is in Schedule 1, so we make a recommendation for cannabis. Okay. How many of you guys saw Sanjay Gupta's Weeds 3? Have you guys seen any of the other ones also? If not, please do. I think he brought a lot of information. He brought information out. But my concerns with him was that he made this as a last line, as an option. And I think it should be first line, not last line. And this is where the information about the 9% addiction rates and the 30% with tobacco and about 20% with opioids. And also the big concern is that the research money is going to show negative effects, not the positive effects. Repeatedly, as soon as NIDA says they approve a study, and when they start showing positive effects, they shut the study down. Not right. Okay, so 2014, we've got 23 states, District of Columbia being now also the state that's now legalized. So we've got 5 places where it's legalization: Washington, Oregon, Colorado, Alaska, and the District of Columbia. And this is the timeline of how this has happened. 2015, here we are. It's still the most common illicit drug in the United States. It's still in Schedule 1, having no medical use and the potential for abuse. 4 states that have legalized it with the District of Columbia. 23, I need to update this because now we've got Georgia with its limited properties for some medical use as well. I leave you guys with my coat, and I thank you all for your attention. Any questions? Okay.
I'd like to add a little bit here.
Okay.
You must be pointing to Dr. Thomas Underlighter. It was in 1973 when Norma got in touch with me with a speech teacher from Georgetown County named Robert Randall. He'd been busted for growing marijuana. And he was hoping that he'd be able to get away with it by saying it was for his phone. Now, this was a last-ditch possibility. Unfortunately, Dr. Underlighter at the New York Psychiatric Institute was working on this. So I connected Robert Randall to Thomas Underlighter. And the two of them put together the first medical marijuana protocol, which you know, as you also know, some of my seeds are being used down there, and they're really good stuff. The fact of the matter is that the problem was, of course, that it was very difficult to figure out what. And by the way, Robert Randall was up with down schedule of the hearings, and they determined that most of the stuff, it didn't really work with glaucoma because it was a topical application. And unfortunately, the poor guy died of HIV. He got it with a Now, Raphael Mechoulam is another person. He's the guy who actually discovered THC, as you know. He actually figured it out. And then he came to the downscheduling hearings to argue against the legalization in any way of marijuana because he was all financially involved with these semi-homologs he was making. I was so angry. I wrote to him and said, "How can you do this, Ray?" And he was so angry. He went to the darn police and he said, "Mr. McKinney has threatened me," and he wouldn't come to the hearings. And I said, "How can you do this, Raphael Mechoulam? You just want to make money off of your damn homologs, and here you go, you're testifying against THC." So that's Mr. Mechoulam. I don't think the greatest thing about him.
I'm happy you're sharing this information. I do want to take a few questions if you don't mind.
Oh, by the way, I was also thus back in 1968. So I've been there.
Yes. Hi.
So I'm curious, and probably others in the room are too. How did you get this passion and get into this movement, and also into the medical side? You know, you went from practicing medicine not related to this to medicine related to this. What led to that?
Very interesting because I was just telling my son actually last night, 5 years ago, somebody told me I was going to be out here speaking about it and not actively as an activist. I was in Washington State and I went out there to work at the world's largest plutonium cleanup site. For those of you who know that there was 2 bombs dropped in Japan. One was a plutonium bomb and one was a uranium bomb. The plutonium bomb was made at the Hanford site, Manhattan Project. And I went out there to work as a family physician in Natick. And Obama had all their major cutbacks, and I was in the process of losing my job. Meanwhile, my parents were living 6 months in India and 6 months here. And my mom, who is not here but gives me this passion to speak today, was diagnosed with idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. Fancy term for we don't know what caused your lung disease. My mother, who had never smoked, who had never ate red meat, to come down with this illness. And I still remember watching this program, and it was how they were using cannabis for lung cancer patients, COPD and asthma. And here I was, a family doc Ahmed, slopping respirators on people, making sure they weren't going to be exposed, and telling people not to smoke. And what do I see but here a vehicle of smoking and inhaling as a treatment. So when I saw this, I said it didn't make sense, and that's when I started to learn about it. So what you've gotten to hear now in this past few minutes, it's taken me over 5 years to learn. But I got very passionate because I realized I started to see patients. I started to do recommendations in Washington, and I've seen over 4,000 patients now from the ages of 18 to 96. And I've gotten my patients off narcotics. I've improved their quality of life and given them hope. And I see a change not only in the patient, but in their families. And I believe in it. And I want to bring the truth out. And I always say, reach one, teach 10. And so that's what I'm here to do. And I believe my passion is that now I've educated all of you and you guys can make the change now. Thank you.